Hello, I'm Jesse Mollop and I'm a proud Indigenous man from the Larrakia Nation of the Northern Territory. On behalf of the Imperfects, I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as the traditional custodians of the land on which they record this podcast. We pay our respects to the elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge their spiritual connection to family. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are recognised for telling and sharing stories with one another, and the Imperfects draw inspiration from the oldest living culture in the world as they share stories of their own.
The Imperfects invites you into a very safe place. A place where we share without judgment and drink heaps and heaps of vulnerability. Grab yourself a cup. This is the Vulnerabilitea House.
Well, here we are for the premiere episode of the year of the Vulnerabilitea House, and it is a special one. It's a very special one, and I'm weirdly nervous about it. I don't know why. Well, it's probably obvious why. But as one of my best friends, if not my best friend from high school in the tea house, Hamish Blake.
Thank you so much, Rye.
That's okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I see you as more of a work acquaintance, but that is so nice.
No, you cut me off. You cut me off.
So nice of you to say.
Hamish Blake, otherwise known as Boss.
You're more of a guy. I never really thought of it that way. You were sort of
Yeah.
more of a guy I know from work, but that's so nice of you to say one of your best friends.
No. God, you took the words out of my mouth. I meant to say that.
It's beautiful to be here. We've known each other since we were 14.
14. We were in Oliver
besties.
Twist together.
We certainly were. That's what cements it.
Yeah.
That's what cements a childhood.
We did
friendship.
school plays together.
Do you know what?
Travelled.
I do think being in a childhood play cements a relationship.
I was listening to actually someone talk about, well, Hugh and Josh, we're not just going to talk the whole time. I feel like Hayes and I-
You and Josh can't be here today. Ryan's work friends can't be.
Yeah, I think you're right. There was someone I was listening to on a podcast, and they were saying that the friends that they made in drama or in theatre at school are the ones they've stayed friends with.
Did you guys have main parts? Were you?
What do you think, mate?
Yeah, if you try watching Oliver Twist without including Mr. Brownlow
And Bill Sykes.
I think you'll find quite a lot of plot holes if you were to take out Oliver's grandpa, who appears in the final scene. And it was that sweet spot of high school drama where you're like, here's a kid, and I was probably 14. Here's a kid not quite hitting puberty yet. How do we make him an 85-year-old grandpa? Tweed suit and some talcum powder in the hair will do it.
Yeah. You were great. You were brand new to the school and you were thrust
Character
into
acting.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was very good. It was a great play.
I was
remember-
impressed. Bill Sykes was a big role. That actually was a big role.
They took my song away, but that's okay. It was I didn't have my solo song, which was probably a good idea.
Did they take it away before you gave it a crack? Or
During.
was it a...
Let's
cut the song.
Which was rare for the day, but there was a GoFundMe quickly started. Like, if we could raise $100, will you stop singing?
Well, the Bill Sykes storyline is sort of problematic for a family audience.
Yeah.
Well, we actually did Oliver Twist in grade 6 at primary school, but it was called Oliver with a Twist, which kind of really gave the.
Oh, what's that mean?
Don't know. It's just what it was called.
I think
So
a lot of time in primary school, the music teacher would rewrite
Yes.
the musical
Yeah.
or write their own, which was always a special treat for the
What
parents.
was it? The Great
Right.
Piratical Rumbustification?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
the
do
great
you know what I
program.
always find hilarious is when high schools or schools put like the real estate type signs out the front of the school going like, Bugsy Mogs, like, this May, or My Fair Lady, upper school production, My Fair Lady. Like, who's going if you're not a parent?
If you don't already know about the play,
You should be on a watch list if you're not. If you're like, all right, and who's your kid at school? No, I'm just a fan of amateur high school theatre. Come to see a young boy not do Bill Sykes' solo.
just scouting new talent. Wow. Anyway, we've talked way too much about Oliver Twist.
Anyway, well, thank you for having me. I hope I showed some level of vulnerability in
Yeah, that's
discussing
enough. You passed. So, Hames, we are very, very excited. I am very chuffed that you're here.
Sorry, can I interrupt 1 second? Do you guys remember when you met? Like, do you remember first? Because I remember meeting all my friends
Yes.
from school. Do you remember like the first time you
Oh, that's a good question.
actually laid eyes on each other and went, is this
I
going to
do
be a
if Hames
friend?
does.
I came to the school. Get ready to hear her. Same.
Yeah.
Get rid of your Rongo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
No, I
No,
actually
yeah,
don't.
yeah, you go. Something was it in the school?
The window broke.
Window
and
broke.
there was a tornado, and you and I saved the teacher's life.
life?
Bonded over that.
Yeah, I remember that.
I wasn't in Rye's class, so I came late in year 9. I think I came in September in year 9 after the club that I'd previously been playing for. We couldn't come to an agreement about me continuing.
Yes.
And I was an unrestricted free agent, and I was drafted. I was expelled.
For performance enhancing?
Yeah, really performance depleting drugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, there was a slight mishap, and
Happens.
but you know, that's a whole other story. But I was like, oh my God, is my life over? Like, what have I done? Like, my dad was like, I think you probably have to go to military school. I don't think any other school will take you. But went and interviewed at this school, and the principal was just a legend. He was like, oh, yeah, you made a mistake. Man, are you going to do it again? I said, nope. And he was like, no, that's all I need to hear. He was like, I believe you. Come on in. And so I was like, great. So I came in late in the year level. So September of year 9. And then I sat next to our mate Tim that was who I was sort of like assigned to. But then in year 9, the basketball court was where it all happened. And so I probably got to know Rye around the basketball court, but then drama class we had together.
That's right. Yeah, and so then the principal said to me, you have to hang out with this new kid, Hamish. And so for like years, they took some money off my tuition fees to hang out with Hamish and make him feel more welcome. And it's still going. I still get it.
It does make actually sense hearing that, because when I'd walk into Ryan's house, his parents would applaud me. And be like, here he is. Is that where my nickname came from? Cashy. Cash Cat. Here he is. You're guilty. All our dreams have come true.
Yeah.
No, but I reckon it was drama, and that is like in the drama class. That's where you're like, oh, okay. That's where you can flex a bit of your creativity and be a bit silly. And then we were friends enough that you had my phone number or I had your phone number, and then
like house number, like home.
That's all you had back in there. This is 96.
But I feel like that happened because we got to the end of the school year, and then you said, do you want to hang out? Didn't you say, do you want to hang out over, or did I say?
You probably said that.
I probably said it.
I definitely probably said it.
Well, one of us said it, and we said, do you want to hang out over Christmas holidays?
Yeah.
And then so we exchanged house phone numbers.
Which was all you could do back then.
Yeah.
Because as well, like I lived miles away from the school. I lived like an hour and a half on the train away from the school.
Wow.
The family situation was like we planned to move closer, but we just never did. And so I had a huge commute, and I'm like, I don't know, I've just moved to this school with no social prospects across the summer. Like you're wrapping up school in December. You're not back till February.
Yeah.
If you don't swap some landlines,
Yeah.
you got a pretty lonely summer coming up. So it was that last week is I remember a bit of a like, I gotta get some things going over summer. And then it was a few weeks in that Rye rang and was like, hey, come over. And that was what cemented it that night together. I came over to Rye's house, and back in those, it was just like come over and hang out and sleep over. And Rye happened to have like every Monty Python video, like every Flying Circus, every like
night.
Life of Brian, Holy Grail. And we just started watching Monty Python. And I loved Monty Python, but I probably hadn't watched it for a year or two. And we just like, it was
devoured
the 1996 version of just getting in a YouTube rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And we were just crying with laughter and in hysterics, and I think that was that.
Yeah, it was like an all-nighter of Monty Python. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys
That'll
came
do
back
it.
after the summer holidays, and people would have been like, "Whoa, they're tight." all of
Yeah,
a sudden.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing some
Cool.
funny walks. Yeah. So I had a John Cleese moustache and Rye grew his hair.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, should we start doing vulnerability?
Let's enter the tea house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hamish, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, guys. I am a big fan. This is really special to be here. I've already sipped a bit of my tea. I don't know if that's
Yeah, well, I have as well.
great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's okay. I think the tea's there to make you feel vulnerable.
Oh my God, I'm feeling it. I'm a bit woozy.
To
What do
open
you
you
put
up.
What do you put in this?
Don't worry.
It's ayahuasca.
Yeah, so this is sort of an 8-hour session.
Yeah, wow.
So we had the idea, well, I think actually it might have been your idea for the Vulnerabilitea House. The pun was your idea. I can't remember the concept of it.
Yeah, I can never
feels
remember.
Like a rye. It feels like a
Yeah.
rye.
It is.
Okay.
So-
Not keeping score. But if you are, that is one for me.
Another one for RS. Turn the page over if I filled the column.
Yeah. We should check the score, actually. Yeah.
So the idea was we would present our guests with 3 different questions. They draw cards. Well, sorry, they draw 3 cards and they read the 3 questions and they choose one to answer.
Okay, great.
The day that we did this, I'm not the most organised person. I had the best of intentions to actually print them out on cards and present them professionally. But the day we did our first episode, I'd forgotten to do it. And so the only cards I could find were, in fact, bluey cards.
Awesome.
And so
great.
we've written all the questions on the bluey cards.
Love that.
So if you'd like to draw the first 3 cards, you can read out the 3 questions and choose the one you'd like to answer.
Okay. Card 1 is just bluey as a fan. Oh, no. I see what
you're upside down.
Thank you. Okay.
I've
got Indy. I've got Chloe. Yep. And Snickers. Great name for a dog.
So you only have to choose one.
So you can read all 3 out so people can hear.
Okay. Who have you never properly thanked for the influence they have had on your life? I will not do that. Sorry, I'm not taking this seriously enough. I'm trying to do.
It's very good.
Trying to do magic.
I just hope we've got that on camera because from where I sat, the view of that was extrely good. Like it looked like the
it
card
was for
disappeared.
you because it was front on where I could see the card behind my back.
That's how I know that trick works.
In what area of your life do you have self-doubt? Yep. What do you worry about the most? Let's go self-doubt.
Self-doubt it is.
Let's play self-doubt.
Okay.
Only because when I read that, I was like, even the fact that this is a question, in what area of your life do you have self-doubt, I guess assumes that there would be people that don't have self-doubt or that, that do things and are just like 100% confident. My answer to that is almost like all areas of my life I have self-doubt.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we would all agree that the reason we started the podcast in the first place is to speak to people who look like they're happy because they're famous or rich or whatever or successful, and for them to come on and say that they have imperfections.
Totally.
And I think you would be one of the main people, I think, that people would know who they would look at you and go, you wouldn't have self-doubt because you're a confident performer.
Yep.
But obviously I know you and that's obviously not the truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, in what area of your life? I mean, well, pick an area. I mean, how about this? You pick an area and I'll tell you what level of self-doubt I have in it because otherwise we're just going to go through all the areas of my life that I have self-doubt. But I think I do. I know it's something, it's a bit of a dance with the devil, self-doubt, isn't it? Because it's you're not trying to eradicate it totally in your life. That's obviously not the goal because then you'd just be a narcissist, I suppose. Like you'd just be a psychopath. But you have to learn how to dance with it. I suppose that's been my biggest thing in life is, I think maybe from teenage years or whatever, I do have a lot of insecurities and a lot of self-doubt and definitely a questioning mind that I've had to learn to dance with, I reckon, in my professional career, especially if you're doing something in the public eye where people, you've especially, let's take it back to when we were in Oliver, if someone said something nasty to you, like it just destroyed you, it just cut you down. And then as you grow up, especially if you're in the public eye, stuff like that's going to happen. And you got to think of a way to deal with it. So that's where the self-doubt creeps in because I suppose just thinking about it now, like you have that self-doubt because it's your ego or something protecting you from going, never ever make a fool of yourself, don't take a risk, just don't do this. And you have to, I've found it's every day. Any professional decision you make, any personal decision you make, you're dealing with dancing with that self-doubt to try and prove it wrong, I suppose.
I think the thing that would be surprising for people is that you are a very confident person. We certainly come across as very confident when you perform. It's like, any panel show you're on or any situation like that, it's you're so confident and so quick as well.
Yeah, right.
So I feel like I watch that and go, there's no self-doubt there. That's just like you're backing yourself in all the way to be, I know I can be really funny here. I know
that's
I
interesting.
But even me knowing you so well from a time when we were teenagers when all there was self-doubt, like there was no other side of the coin. But even knowing you for that long, I still get tricked sometimes into thinking that you don't have self-doubt. Even though I know when I think about it, but I can easily get caught in the trap of thinking that you don't doubt yourself at all.
Like something like a panel show is a fascinating one because here's my experience of being on a panel show. Like, okay, you're asked to be on a panel show and you're probably on with someone that's more of like a stand-up or like more of a one-night comedian. And, you know, going into the show, you usually have a chance to prepare, and I always somehow miss the chance to, like, I'm always like self-sabotaging. And then I always have a feeling when I'm stepping onto the set being like, fuck, idiot. Why didn't you think of something? Like, you should have thought of something. and my brain just won't. Like, I'm a bit of a last minute person.
Yeah.
But, you know, I spend a lot of my time on those shows hearing for other funny things people have said and being like, oh, that was good. That's you know,
Wow.
that's funny. And hearing the stuff I'm saying, even like as I'm talking now, I'm like, I have a voice in my head going, I don't know where you're going with this or what you're doing. So I'm constantly battling with that thought. And I never watch myself. I've never watched much back at all of anything I've done. And I think it's from the same sort of voice that's just not going to love what they see. So I do love doing that stuff, and I enjoy conversations and I enjoy comedy and trying to be funny. But I am certainly, you know, I guess part of the attraction is because I'm a bit. There's a fear. I fear doing it because you're scared of looking like an idiot, and I do it because I'm a bit scared, or, you know, I do it because the alternative is like you kind of let the fear win. So you always sort of pushing yourself into that arena, but still doubting your talents or what you can do. I mean, I think that all the time. I think that when you know, it is a funny dance, isn't it? Because I don't want to sound, you know, I'm always extremely grateful that when people say that they've enjoyed something or they like it. But even when people say that, my brain finds a way to go, they don't, you know, they must not really know me, or they must not know me that well. Do you know what I mean? Even because it's sort of like, all right, I've done a thing and people are like, oh, I loved that. My brain sometimes goes, right, that's just one thing that I do. That's the thing they like about me, but it's a small part of my personality, like whatever performance they might be referencing. And it's funny, I have a voice inside my head that's like, oh no, that means you should only do that now.
Yeah.
And there's a whole part of you that you can't be because
Oh,
that's
wow.
the thing they like. So it's sometimes it's annoying living with this voice, but you're like, man, that was a compliment. I'm just like, you know, I've found a way to trip myself up with a compliment, like let alone a criticism.
But
It's
that must
really tricky though, because that would be, surely that's also in some ways healthy, because you don't want to be identified as that thing wholly and solely. So when you get a criticism for that, then it completely knocks you down. So it's like,
yes,
having it as a separate thing.
Maybe that's
a defense.
That's a good point. Like, you know, and I think over time you build up when you've done it for a fair while. Like any performer, I think would build up you got to build up a fairly strong wall or an air gap between. Even though I like to think, like, let's say with podcasting or TV shows, like who you are on screen is pretty close to who you are off screen, but you're certainly pulling or, like, you know, turning up certain aspects of your personality because that's what you need to do as a TV host, or that's what the show calls for. But you're not being a completely different person.
Well, you're not.
You're not. Maybe some people, but it's tricky because the closer you are to that person, if people hate it, they hate you. But if you were a character actor and be like, I hated that performance, you're like, oh well, I don't care. That's not me. I was Mr. Brownlow. I'm actually not an old man in Oliver. So I feel, you know, you didn't like my performance, but that's not who I am. But when you kind of are yourself as a job, and this would be for most comedians and a lot of like people in our industry, you are yourself professionally. Yeah. So you do have to build up a bit of an air gap to go, I know that I'm a version of myself on air. You have to be a version, because otherwise if you're exactly that thing, or you have to mentally know that, like, okay, if someone hates you on Lego Masters, that's totally fine because people can, and that's fine. And if people love you, that's totally fine too. I think you have to, like, have that gap from it. So you can't let it make your day and you can't let it wreck your day, because it's like, that's a thing I do. That's not who I am. And I think you got to build that up.
Yeah. But I wonder if that means from the flip side, you don't get the joy, or not the joy, you don't get the luxury of experiencing the compliment fully as well. It's like leveled out at both ends of the spectrum.
I do level it out a bit, but I think that's just the way I've evolved with it.
I mean, you must get a lot of compliments as well, which...
I mean, not
how many? We can wait for the math.
I got that one in August. That was good. But they thought I was Andy. But you know, it's a good question, mate. I mean, but I suppose, like anything, you know, you you realize I realize if I'm pegging it to that, if I'm like, if someone saying I liked that is making my day, or someone saying I didn't like that is breaking my day, it's very externally pegged.
Yeah, it's a dangerous.
And it's a dangerous game to play. And it's one that, I actively work a lot in life because we all do it, of course. We're, it's not like we're hermits. We all love external validation, or we're geared to love it. But I do spend a lot of time going, hey, the more you can keep an internal scorecard, ultimately the happier you're going to be.
Yeah.
Do you ever? I've never asked you this, but if someone gives you a compliment that they like something you've done, do you ever think, I don't believe you? Like if it's from someone that you know, or even from a stranger, do you ever go like, does the self-doubt get so strong that it goes that your voice tells yourself they're lying?
I don't think I ever think they're lying, but it does come back to that. My brain unfortunately goes, oh, they picked that. And that must mean everything else you've done is
okay.
Didn't get the mark.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's now that I think about that, I know that's probably a pretty unhealthy way. Or that's a weird it's a unfortunate way for your brain to bend.
With like validation though, is that like something that when you're doing something, especially if it's new, like Lego Masters, for example, because I was with you on that first night when it first aired, the first episode. And because that was real sort of first time, other than like panel shows and guest appearances, that was the first time you did something by yourself.
Yep.
So that was a big deal, obviously. I can imagine there was self-doubt in that.
Absolutely.
So when there's self-doubt like that, which was quite a big, and it was really big promotion, like a huge
very
stage.
Shiny.
Very shiny. And so does validation, does it kind of fill that, or does it kind of fix that self-doubt, for want of a better phrase?
Yes, I guess the main, I actually had a real moment because I was like, let's use Lego Masters as an example, because it was like that thing of being like, hey, do you want to host this show? It's very, very different. It's obviously not Hamish and Andy. It's very different to anything you've ever done. It's like, let's be honest, it's a reality show. And, I remember we had dinner and we were talking about it, and I could think of like thousands of reasons not to. Like, don't do this. Like, if it's bad.
Yeah.
If it's bad, everyone will be like, yeah, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Like, of course, this is not what you do. So you can't be surprised. And there really was, that was a lot. There was tons of self-doubt with this. There was like, a chorus of like lots and lots of reasons, lots and lots of great reasons you shouldn't do this. No one will ever know. Just don't do it. But there was that tiny part of me that was like, yeah, but if you don't, and then you see it on TV and you're like, that was fun. That's fun. Whoever's doing it, they're having fun. This is a good show. This stands for things that I believe in and I care about. Like, it's fun. It's creative. It's like pretty joyous. It's making families happy, and you let that fear and that doubt win, that will be the disappointing feeling I don't think I'll be able to handle.
Yeah.
If you've let doubt rule the day here. But I remember that distinctly going like, okay, I had a real battle against, self-doubt, insecurities, reasons not to do it. And I was glad that, on that occasion it didn't win, and I was able to stand there going, okay, now I've been through something. Whereas if I didn't do it, I would have just been the guy that was like telling his friends, I got asked to do that show.
Yeah.
And it's like an interesting anecdote for 5 seconds.
And you said no? It's the best. I love Grant Denyer in that.
You said no. Darren McMullen's so good. He is good, isn't he? He is good.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about when we first met?
Yes.
Mainly because anyone who's heard me do a show in the last 5 years will be going, I'm interested in this.
And it's in the book.
and it's in the book as well. But it's also kind of related to this topic as well of self-doubt, in that we met in a cafe similar to Ryan and myself, and I just got really nervous and completely butchered it. And I went for a high five. No, anyway, it was a mess, and you ended up shaking my fist, and I walked away going, "Oh, I'm a fucking idiot! That was just ridiculous." Anyway, when I wrote, and that's pretty much where it was.
Yeah.
So we met and then never really spoke again.
Yep.
And in my head, I'm like, well, of course he doesn't want to speak again. I when he came and shook my fist, and it was just weird. And then Ryan and I became really good mates just from talking about life. And then I wrote the book, put the bit about you, and I said to Ryan, oh, look, I've got this bit about Hamish. I'd love him to read it before everyone reads it, because I feel like I've also told hundreds of thousands of people that story, and they love it. Like, they just think it's so funny. So I thought, well, I want him to read that just in case people come up to him and go, oh, I heard that Hugh thing that happened, and I didn't want you going, what is he do? What? I don't remember that. Yeah. And so then you sent an email back to me saying, not only do I remember it, but it was, I remember I have thought since, why did you go and be friends with Ryan and not really me? What did I do wrong?
Which is which is funny because like I'm that was at Archie's in Fitzroy. Like I remember the handshake. But that's what I was saying. I was like, as it went on.
Oh yeah, we both went to the same cafe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't put that
just be very clear. I didn't hang out at that cafe. So
well, every day. For anyone listening, if you want to get into podcasting, broadcasting, the speaking side of things, Archie's is really the hotbed.
Yeah, it's the meet and great spot.
It's the comics lounge in the 70s, like the comedy store in the 70s.
But then I remember you. So you wrote back and said, yeah, funnily enough, that's I often wondered why that didn't happen, and then I felt really bad because I thought, well, since Ryan and I had become really good friends, we'd had messages about a few things, but I didn't really hotly pursue a friendship for fear that Ryan would think that I was being friends with him to get to you.
Yeah.
And so I had this really bad feeling of like, I don't know how to play this because Hamish seems like a great guy. I'd love to be mates with him, but I don't want to upset Ryan in the process.
Wow.
And so
there's so much going on behind the scenes here, and everyone's
don't you think this is a beautiful example of like adult men. It's hard to make adult friends, right?
Yeah.
We're all crippled by insecurities.
Yeah.
You're off being friends with Ryan. I'm sitting here going, wow, it looks like Ryan and Hugh are becoming really good friends. Like, obviously, I've been best mates with Ryan since we grew up.
Yeah.
Hugh sounds really impressive. Like, I'm aware of his work. Seems like a really funny guy. He's shown no interest in expanding the group. But he's made his vote. And obviously other people see me a lot differently than how I see myself. And he's based on what he's seen, he's decided that, it's just going to be him and Rye as mates. And there's never been any suggestion of a group hang. So cop it on the chin, plenty more Hughes in the sea.
Go back to Archie's.
But it's certainly like everyone's just swirling around this thing. This probably happens all the time.
Yeah.
I find it gets so much harder as a grown-up to be like, I wish the days of year 9 where you could just exchange landlines.
I know.
Like, I don't even remember being nervous exchanging the net landline.
No.
But now as grown-ups, you're like, how do we...
Yeah. I mean, this is there's a specific message you sent me. It's a really long one after Ryan's episode, and it was the most beautiful message. And I was like analysing in my head, like, how much do I write back here? Like, is it, I don't want to write back too much just in case he says to Ryan, oh, Hugh wrote me this massive message, and Ryan's like, hang on a minute, what's going on? How much do you guys talk? What's the...
Yeah.
That's always been this...
Yeah,
this does paint you as quite a possessive friend.
No,
it's funny.
It's not. It's me. That's all on me.
No.
You've never done anything to...
No, I know. But it's a correct...
And I'm sitting here going, oh, Ryan's hogging Hugh all for it.
Well, it's a correct instinct in this particular situation because a lot of my life when we've been working together, because you did the radio show and became, there's Hamish and Andy. So many people do get in contact with me to say, hey, do you reckon Hames would be interested in doing this or that? So it is something that has always happened. So it's probably the right instinct, not that I was actually worried about that, but the right instinct that you had, I think.
I'd actually say, and knowing Rye too, being on the other side of the coin, during that period too where, we'd worked together on Hamish and Andy shows, but Rye's finding his voice and doing his thing, which needed to be separate to Hamish and Andy stuff. And because we all worked at the same company and we're all like co-owners of the business that made Hamish and Andy shows. Yes, at the actual time, correct me if I'm wrong here, Rye, but that Hugh came along, that's like, it was a big time emotionally for you to be like, okay, I'm finding my way in my life. I'm addressing some things. To have someone turn around and be like, by the way, it's actually, I just want to meet Hamish and Andy. Yeah. it wouldn't have been awesome.
Yeah. I mean, like it honestly, because even still, I still get that feeling, not necessarily with you, but with people who say, hey, do you reckon Hames would be interested in doing my nephew's bar mitzvah, something like that? And it's no ill will to those people, because I totally get it. Of course, like, you want any way you can get to someone that will help, but it is definitely a thing that has been a constant.
Because it was even like the show I did at the convention centre that you came to the first time
Oh,
that
yeah.
Ryan ever heard me speak, it sort of meant a lot. I really wanted it to go well. And I thought, well, here's a problem. I was sitting in the green room going, I've got an issue here because probably everyone's favourite story is about when I met Hamish. And part of it is going, oh, I love Hamish Blake, incredible, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, oh, I can't have Ryan hear me say that. And so I had this huge panic before going on stage and going, do I tell this story now? Or like, is it going to confirm all Ryan's fears? So it's been I'm happy to have this discussion, I have to say.
This is great to clear the air.
To be honest,
I don't have much to add, by the way. You guys good.
This is where I go, the main reason I want to be friends with Hugh was for Josh.
You wouldn't be the first.
That's actually quite close to the bone.
I think
this wildly oscillates between having a laugh and deeply traumatizing one member at the table.
I get similar to what you were saying before. It happens to me a lot with Hugh.
Yeah, I can imagine.
A lot of people. And there was a period where, especially at social functions, so many people would want to come up and talk to me about how well Hugh was going, which was great. I mean, he's my brother and I love him, so I'm really happy for him and no ill will for going well.
Yeah, but what about me?
Yeah, but it kind of after a while, you're like, well, fuck, everyone just wants to talk about him.
Of course.
And like,
it's hard, yeah.
That's a
yucky. I know. I've sensed that and I feel yucky about that.
It is a yucky feeling. I mean, I feel even hearing Ryan say that, it's a yucky feeling because you're like, I don't want that for my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, there is I still do have, and I wasn't sure whether I'd talk about this, but I do have a weird, I mean, we joked about me being a possessive friend, but there is a weird possessiveness that I do have with both of you in certain ways. And it's like, there's a Seinfeld episode about don't let your worlds collide, and there is part of me that, like, the thought of you two becoming friends, it worries me.
I would say that's a common feeling though, right? I would say you're probably not as alone as you think in that feeling. I can understand that feeling. I reckon especially guys, because I have no idea what it's like to be a girl, but for adult friendships, you're like, oh, I feel, we get less of them as we go through life, or they become more and more special, and we know how valuable they are. Like, we know at the end of the day, like, your friends and family and your interpersonal relationships are really all you've got. And I think if you've got a special friendship, it's hard in terms of self-doubt. It's hard to, like, it kind of ties back to what we're talking about. It's hard for it if you feel like that they see something in someone else that they don't see in you.
It's exactly that.
It's hard to swallow that because it challenges that feeling of specialness, because you start to get worried. And
it reinforces that self-doubt of like...
it helps that voice go, see, maybe not that great.
Gosh.
And I know what that feeling's like, absolutely, where you're like... And you chastise yourself, like, as soon as you catch it, you're like, okay, that's not the way to think. But I think it's something people could relate to.
Yeah.
But I wanted to tell, like, Hamish and I had lunch just before this. I wanted to tell you, like, I felt like, I was like, I got to tell Ryan this. I thought we weren't going to tell him.
Oh. but like,
we didn't. I had to buy a basket.
Oh,
because I'm going on a picnic. So I was at John's Basket Emporium. And if you give me a day, I can produce a receipt.
With a date and time?
Yeah. Yep.
Great.
Printed receipt.
Okay. I'll actually call John's after.
You can't. It's a word of mouth store.
But like, I just want to finish this thought. But I think that the thing that and I think it's what you were saying, Hames, which is like the specialness is it's stupid. Because I know that I can be best friends with you, and I can be best friends with you, and best friends with Josh as well. But it's like, but just while we're talking about this,
of course,
love triangle. It's like I get stuck in my head about things like, oh well, you guys both like cricket, you guys both like exercise. You're going to form this special bond. And then I'll be cut out because I can't provide you guys with enough of the stuff that you want in a friend.
Our brains, it's honestly, like, I cannot believe what our brains tell us. That's just outrageous.
But do you know what? I mean, and that's, I just think people hearing that would be like, you know what? Like, we're having a laugh, but people be like, yeah, I sometimes feel that with my mates, because we're like worried about where we fit in people's lives, because our friendships mean everything, especially for someone like myself, and I think you're similar. My friendships are everything. Like my marriage obviously is the queen one.
You said friendships are everything first.
You're better than my wife. But they are such a foundational part of me. And I reckon I was like this from my teen years too. But it's that it's actually the conversation you're having reminds me, and I say this with maximum respect, of how I talk with my kids because because we talk about the same thing because like, you know, they're competitive 4 and 7.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you know, like my daughter, especially if if she hears me saying to my boy, like, you know, I love you, you know, with my whole heart. And that's, you don't ever have to do anything to earn that love, you know, at nighttime. Say the same thing every night. So I'm like, I love you just because of you. I love you. If she's feeling a bit competitive, you know, she'll roll her eyes and be like, well, then I guess you don't love me then. And you'll be like, oh, here we go. Okay.
She's amazing.
So I'll be like, no, Rue, but I love you with my whole heart. She goes, so then you don't love Sonny.
Wow.
I'm like,
I'm having these conversations at home at the
and
moment as well.
so you like, it forces you to, there's like lots of parenting stuff like, okay, how do I explain this to the kids? You're like, I have Sonny love that's for him because it's of who he is and no one else can have it.
I've never asked you who you love more out of Sonny and Rue.
I'll tell you off air because it can be a spicy topic. No, but then you're like, and then that's how I try and explain to them. It's like, and I really love that no one else can have because that's for you and that's yours. And no what else I love or who else I love, they can't ever take away what we have. And it's the same thing. It's the same, but it's from that just shows me from the time you're a baby, that's how human brains work to be like, I love the love. I need this love. I need this connection that we have between each other. And it's a primal fear we have that if you see it going to someone else, maybe there's less for me.
Yeah.
That's the zero-sum game of love instead of the infinite game of love where obviously, you know, you don't halve your love when you have another kid.
Yeah.
Got some bad news for you, mate. I'm going to need half back.
Yeah.
I have another mouth. I have another heart to feed.
That's genuine. I'm expecting one, and that's genuinely my fear at the moment. I'm like, how can I have more?
And I'm going to annoy you the same way that people with 2 kids annoyed me when I had one where they're like, it doubles, and you're like, yeah it won't. Yeah. You're like, nice try, mate, but I could never love something as much as I love this current kid.
Yeah.
And then it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they keep saying. So I'm looking forward to that because it feels pretty good.
It does. It does. It definitely doesn't half.
Yeah.
So does that feel like, having said that, is that like
Well,
does it feel less?
No, it does. And I'm conscious of the fact that I just don't want it to come across like I've waited to say it on the podcast to be dramatic, you know, to make a good episode.
Yeah.
It does feel better, I guess, at least to have just said it out loud, because it is like I was, you know, like when you said that you guys were catching up for lunch before we recorded today, I did get a pang, and it's around that worry, but it's my own weird. It's a weird jealousy thing that I clearly have that I just need to figure out on my own. But I think, like you said, Ham, I think it's a very common thing.
No one can have my Ryan love.
Yeah, thanks, Ham. That's nice.
There you go.
But it is a funny thing, and it does feel good to say it. If nothing else, just so it's, I don't know, just so I'm not maybe carrying it, and maybe it was a kind of heavy thing because I thought about calling you, Hames, before to talk about it and say that, and I just didn't. But I'm glad I've said it now. But I'm also conscious of I don't want everything that I say vulnerably to be on the podcast. I don't want to make it like this thing that I save for good content. But it just, you know, it is what it is now.
I got bad news for you. It is good content because I reckon
you mark it for a promo. Okay?
Got really bad news for you, mate. We sent it to the Green Guide. But it is.
The Green Guide.
But it is.
All due respect to the Green Guide.
That's still a thing, isn't it?
Of course it is.
I'm sure I have a
Great thing.
podcast section. I haven't read it for years, but I reckon what you're saying is it is. I definitely am glad you said it on the podcast because again, you never know who's listening to this to be like, oh, I felt like I felt like a bit of an idiot feeling that about my mates.
Yeah.
Because again, you look at how we are as kids. Like I have a real strong memory of remember in the playgrounds, I don't know if this is the same for you guys, but at primary school it was like, it's all about friend ranking.
Yeah.
Like you're my best friend, you're my second best friend. And you're like, oh, Nathan likes David more. What?
Yeah.
Like I thought I was first best friends with Nathan and David and someone's cut you out.
Yeah.
It's a total human instinct that obviously never dies in us because we're social animals. And my guess would be it's critical for us to feel like those social contracts are in place. And I'm sure a psychologist could give a much better explanation of this, but my guess would be it's just like we have contracts in place with everyone in our life socially. And if they're threatened, that rocks our identity. And on the other side of the fence, it's probably a good thing as friends to remember that, to tell the people in your life that you love that you do love them because they're them, and that's why you're mates with them. As I love you,
I love you.
So it's and you don't if I do want to talk about exercise, I've got Hugh, but there's lots of things that I can only talk to Rye about.
Yeah. I mean, mainly we just send each other post-exercise selfies.
We really did.
Yeah.
God, you'd be bored in our
Well, no, I played mixed netball for a few years, so I'm sure I could rub shoulders with you guys.
But it's also good for me to hear that from you, just to be aware of that, I guess. That feeling.
But I don't want. Sorry to cut you off, but I don't want it to. That was the other thing I was worried about. That then you would then start second guessing being able to wholeheartedly become friends with Hamish, because I want that. I know he's great. And I can so see why you'd want to be. So I don't want that to be a thing where I shouldn't become too close with Hamish because it'll upset Ryan. That would be the thing that I wouldn't want. That would be the worst.
But
case
even
scenario.
for me, just to say to you, like, Hamish and I wanted to catch up to talk about being a dad today, which is why we sort of caught up.
Yeah.
You'd go, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense that you'd want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make myself sound like the non-jealousy king here, but there is maybe it's because Josh's family, but when I know you two are catching up together, oh my God, I love it. When you guys went to Sydney together, I was just so happy the whole time knowing you guys.
So should we put 1 for Hugh on the scoreboard then?
Shit, I'm still on 0. Offering nothing.
Sorry, Hugh, sorry. Yeah.
No, but I maybe it's a family thing, but the second I met you, I remember thinking, oh God, Josh is going to love Ryan so much. I can't wait for this to happen. And I made an excuse for you guys to meet, which is like, oh, we need someone to do the tech stuff for the podcast. Like, I just wanted you guys to just love each other as much as I love you both. And that
worked.
was like and it worked. But anyway, you've kind of got a story around self-doubt.
Yeah, I've had a fair bit of, early on in the pod, I've had self-doubt throughout this whole experience of doing the pod. I've had self-doubt my whole life. I think it's been one of my issues is the internal monologue that I've had going on is just so different to way other people see me, and probably the reality of what's going on. But even then, it's so the mixture of external validation and self-doubt and self-monologue, it's such a messy area where you don't really want, because the external validation is not really what you want either.
It's a bad drug.
It's a real bad drug.
Yeah. And I sort of think the only useful thing you can use it for, but you have to, I feel like you've got to handle it with radioactive gloves in the glass cube. Like you be careful with it, but the only thing to carefully use it for is to be to that internal monologue, that internal voice. I think that is doubting is to be like, see, you're not right. Just to use it sometimes to be like, you're not always right. And then step away, because it's certainly not the goal, but it is. You can maybe use that as a perspective to be like, you were telling me not to do this thing to the voice, like you were trying to stop me, and it wasn't the right thing for me.
Well, I've got an example of self-doubt that's almost current to this moment. Is that when we've started doing this season, we've gotten fantastic people involved, people who really know what they're doing, who are professionals and amazing, who are behind a curtain about 2 meters away from me.
Yeah.
And even though this is what episode is this? This is the 3rd ep that people will be hearing. Yeah. We've probably recorded about 8 or 9 of them. And the first few eps I was quite quiet on the mic. I didn't say much. And my self-doubt was going like, Hugh and Ryan, I think, respect me and know why I'm here. But all these new people must be going, I don't quite understand. Josh is just here because he's Hugh's brother and he used to do the tech stuff, and I don't really get what he's adding to the podcast. Like I'm still, and this internal monologue was just going out of control, and then that made me not want to, then I couldn't contribute. I couldn't say things in the podcast because I was starting to, in my head, going like, you're an idiot. You don't, you're offering nothing to this. And it's just been, it's been an interesting experience. And I don't know I think the cure for it thus far has just been to just stay in it, in what you're doing. Just forget, just do whatever you can to not think about what other people think.
But here's how far you are. Sorry, you're the guest. I'm going to jump
Sorry,
in.
this is your app.
I want to hear you. I want to hear what you're saying.
Well, I know you actually said to me, I remember, because Bridge, our producer, is just phenomenal at what she does. And you said to me, the example you gave was, I think Bridge might be wondering what on earth I'm doing on here. But then the day before that, Bridge sent me a text message saying, what Josh offers this podcast, it makes it so different to anything else in any podcast you'll listen, it's so deep, it's so insightful. It takes interviews to the next level, which you do, and that's why you're on here, and you're incredible at it. Like the
Thanks,
Johan.
Bridge. Bridge is over there, by the way, for people.
One for Bridge.
Yeah. I'm still on zero.
Everyone's racking it up.
Did Bridge mention anything about me in that?
But it was just, no, Bridge and I were listening to an edit that we were doing on the Johan Hari episode where you were just, it's the most extraordinary moment of any podcast ever. It was amazing.
It was.
And she commented that and said, that's what Josh does that other people can't do. And it was a beautiful message. And I told you that, and you were genuinely surprised.
Yeah, genuinely surprised.
Because it was the
And
opposite of what you were thinking.
Here's where it gets tricky, I reckon. Now it's all becoming about me, sorry. But here's where it
Case
gets
study.
tricky is that that means so much to have someone like Bridge say that, she's so brilliant, and to hear her say that is wonderful. But then it's like, what do you do with that information? Like, it comes back to what you were saying.
This is what I
at
think
the
I was
start
saying
of the
before. It was
episode,
like,
where you're
okay, you've got to sometimes, I think, use that sparingly to be like, when you talk to the person inside your head going, you can't do this, you shouldn't be here.
yeah.
That's the bit where you're like, I'm not doing it so people say great
Take
job,
away the- yeah.
but I am able to go, here's someone I really respect and admire who says something that proves the voice wrong.
So
It
just
helps
use it to
you
shut up the
It
voice.
helps you shut up the voice
Yeah.
a little bit to help you take that extra step, that little step, especially when you're starting out on something. And I would echo Bridget's thoughts. I think, you're great on here. It's a really interesting example because just as a snapshot of the performance, like, you absolutely belong. You're where you're meant to be, you're doing what you're meant to do, and you sound great. To me, I think so many people go through this. I've felt this in my career where I'm like, yeah, but I'm only got this because of X, Y, and Z. And I think that's just a way that our insecurities try and beat us down by using this logical argument to go, you're only here because of happenstance, so you don't really deserve this. Like, there's a lot of different ways our insecurities make us feel like we don't really deserve something.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't earned it.
You haven't earned it.
They got many
but,
weapons.
But I actually think that's not evidence of anything except how you got here. It doesn't have anything to do with your performance.
Yeah.
It doesn't change what you do on
And
air.
who cares?
And
how you
who
got
cares
there?
how you got
Yeah.
there? And so it's like, you know what? Sometimes
Yeah.
people get lucky. They walk through the right door at the right time.
And that's fine.
You still were doing stuff in life that exposed you to options, and you took an opportunity, and then you've ended up where you're meant to be.
Yeah.
And you've ended up doing a thing you're great at. And how you got to the spot, I think, is irrelevant. But it is a thing that our brain uses to trick us a bit.
To reinforce that.
To
Yeah.
go, it's sort of like, if someone sees a car accident and runs in and does CPR and saves someone's life, no one's going, oh, well, yeah, you only saved his life because you were walking past. That doesn't really count.
That is so spot on.
It's like, but you saved his life.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
the real heroes are the ones that knew about that was going to happen, and that, or the ones at the hospital waiting for the patient.
Yeah.
You're just a fraud.
That's amazing.
Sprinted over because
Yeah.
you saw an
Incredible
opportunity.
analogy.
That is
But you know what I mean? It
exactly
doesn't change the fact that performance-wise, you're doing the thing that
Yeah.
you've chosen to do and taken the risk. And I haven't heard all the season yet because it's still in the can. But like, I'm sure
it was really bad.
I'm sure in every interview and stuff, it's like that's really what, when you're on the mic, you're constantly making the decision: do I talk now? Do I not talk now? I'm listening. Is this a thought worth airing? Is this not a thought worth airing? And it's all of those thousands and thousands of decisions that, like, that's what you're actually doing. It's
the job,
not
yeah.
just because you're in the room.
I do also love the analogy of Josh walking past us and going, there's a car crash, I better help him.
These guys are filming on Nokias.
Yeah.
I don't know if this applies, and we might not include it. It might be going on too long. But on the self-doubt and that voice, my psychologist did this thing with me, and our psychologist. Not that we go to her at the same time.
Be interesting.
Yeah. But after years and years of going, she tried this new technique where she asked me to, like, visualize, basically close my eyes and visualize the voice. Like, what does it look like? And describe
Who's trying to
who
talk
it
you
is.
out of it.
Yeah, like, what is that?
The critical voice.
That critical self-doubting voice. And she was like, I had to basically describe who they were, like describe what kind of person they are, what they look like, what their behavior is like. Went in this really deep it was a very strange experience the more we did it, because I could really pin down who this person was and why they were doing it. And I ended up in tears in this session because we made this sort of realization that all this voice wanted to do was to protect me and save me from experiencing pain.
Yeah.
And when I realized that that's what it was doing, it was this amazingly freeing experience of, like, oh, you're trying to protect yourself, so give yourself a break. And I found it incredibly freeing to be able to go, oh, okay, well, if it's trying to protect me, I can say to it, I don't need your help today. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need
It does.
protecting.
It really
I
changes
can-
the context, doesn't it? Where you're
Yeah.
like, that's just it's just a poorly worded, helpful voice.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
just a pretty shit helper.
Yeah.
Okay, like, I don't need your help. I got this.
Yeah, wow.
Well, we've gone on for a good amount of time.
I don't think there's any way we could have done it faster. The Oliver stuff at the start was essential.
And now that you've back referenced it, we can't cut it out. He's a pro. Well,
Yeah,
Hamish,
do you know, if this episode, though, is under 4 hours, we cut out the Oliver stuff.
yeah, that's
So
a
you
fair-
say, here's me back referencing something that was totally fine to lose at the start.
Yeah. Well, Hames, thank you for coming on the podcast, but thank you
Thanks, that was
for
a great chat.
being my best friend. Thanks for everything.
No one else can have my Ryan love.
It's a
kiss.
lovely way to finish the episode.
I gave you a kiss on the mic.
Appreciate it. Do I kiss you back?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I just took the kiss. Thank you. I'll eat it later.
Cheers for that. I've had lunch, so I won't have that now. Great.
It was great. Thanks, boys.
Thanks, Hamish.
Thank you. Thanks. If this episode has been triggering for you, we strongly recommend Lifeline on 131114. The Imperfects is hosted and co-produced by Hugh Van Kylenberg, Ryan Shelton and Josh Van Kylenberg. This episode was produced by Bridget Northeast, edited by Andy Hall, filmed by Andy Poole and social mediaed by George Martin. A special thanks to Dr. M for her expertise and guidance. We'd also like to thank the Resilience Project for their ongoing support. Our acknowledgement of country was delivered today by Jesse Motlop, and you can find Jesse's podcast, Deadly Discussions, on YouTube. Thanks for listening.